Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope you're doing okay in our viral apocalypse. I'm back with the fourth part of my novella, The List. Amazon Kindle says that I'm about 40% through this, so hopefully we'll be halfway after this episode, I guess. Yeah, I have episodes. I hope you guys are enjoying, and as always, you can buy the full version from Amazon, Smashwords, Barnes and Noble, any of those places online. You can find the links to all of my books, including the list, at michellelee.net. Jackson White I put on the list not because I hated the jerk, but because he was without a doubt a threat. To begin with, he wasn't actually white, just named white. He wasn't black like Frank either. He was the kind of man steeped in stereotype, and being black and Muslim, that stereotype was unmistakably violent these days. Jackson told people he was proud of his body, but you don't get to his size, or his MMA experience, without aggression. I didn't think the whole race, religion, anger thing was connected. I mean, assholes are assholes, no matter their race, gender, religion, or body type. It's the present inside that remains true, not the wrapping paper. But the last thing I needed in my building was a mid 30s, 350-pound mass of muscle with training and an outright love of battle. Did I want him on my side? Well, maybe, if we'd been on better terms to begin with. But the threat of Jackson becoming a violent bully, he wasn't, but times changed people, was too much for me to risk. It was a calculated move, but not one I was really ready to handle. But who is ready to handle people trying to gnaw your face off? Even soldiers in war zones have trouble handling stuff like that. Ever met a Vietnam vet? Yeah, they don't have issues, they have lifetime subscriptions. And admittedly, they had them for a reason. Jackson didn't have the benefit of actual military training, but he was an impressive specimen who could have worked or who could have been collected along with the rest of the warriors of the world. Rumor said that Jackson had signed up for the army out of high school, but for reasons nobody would talk about, they wouldn't take him. Rumor also said he was a recovering alcoholic who'd spent a bit of time behind bars for hitting a girlfriend. Rumor's name, by the way, was Matthew, who'd been scared by Jackson the one time he tried to preach the gospel of anti Muslim, anti everything but white males with money to him. Imagine that! Jackson had taken offense. Damn right he should have. That interaction was legendary in the building. But in the end, it's why I decided I needed to carefully handle Jackson for the sake of my territory. Jackson, though, Jackson was a mistake. He lived on the second floor, almost dead center of the building, which had its pros, namely lower utility bills, but many more cons. With people above and below you, someone was always complaining about some thump or bump or noise, and you didn't even have the pro of not having to deal with upstairs noisemakers yourself. It was the noise complaints on Jackson that got the complex to spring for a proper exercise room. Access granted for an additional $20 a month, of course. I scoped out his place, then late one night let myself in and found the apartment empty. Posters of bodybuilders and ebony beauties on the wall, colorful rugs and coordinating throws making the place look all exotic. Of course, any rugs and matching throw pillows and light blankets draped casual perfect on the back of a recliner was exotic compared to my makeshift stockroom. That Jackson was mysteriously missing from the apartment was disappointing, but above all, troubling. It was possible that he'd been caught at work, but to be sure I'd have to check the exercise room. The problem there was its location, outside the main building. Oh, it was connected to the building by a long hall, more of a covered breezeway, like the kind you'd find in schools between the buildings. All walls of windows with simple doors on either ends. In other words, I'd have to go through some very unsafe territory to even check. Was it worth it? A zombie Jackson size with his reflexes and strength? I couldn't chance it. I couldn't let it go. Which meant I'd have to hazard the Hall of No Man's Land. This took consideration and lots of planning. I was painfully aware of how little I knew. Clearly, the zombie pandemic was spread somehow. No bomb, gas, or experiment had this kind of range, unless, of course, I was missing the whole picture, and it was just my city affected. Something quivered in my chest at that thought. I mean, disasters struck specific locations all the time, right? Maybe this was just a glorified natural disaster. Hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis. Nature was deranged and violent, but it lacked focus. Purpose as well. Mother Earth wasn't ever as deadly as she could be, so why would I expect the zombie apocalypse to be any different? Because no one had helped yet. There'd been no tide loads of hope or Budweiser trucks of bottled water coming in. No messages, no sounds of tanks patrolling the street and soldiers coming to save us. There hadn't been any rescue attempt, nor martial law. There had just been lonely silence all around, save for the zombies. No, we were in this alone. And for all intents and purposes, I had to believe the whole world had gone over to the fucked side. There were things that I couldn't have known that might have helped. Discovery Channel stuff, like Life After People, only how to survive zombies. Did they smell us? Was their eyesight better in death than in life? How did they hold up to heat and wind and rain? Until I had a true locked down compound and a room and backup for experimentation, there was no way I could know these things. I had to guess. I hate guessing. I chose daylight because it would be easier for me to find an escape route in the light for sure. I wished idly for night vision goggles, but last I'd checked, the army surplus store hadn't even been able to keep those around. It increased the possibility of discovery, but I couldn't forget that I would have lockable doors and a thin barrier of glass, which at the very least gave warning by smashing or banging if somebody was coming through. Still, it felt so wrong when I slipped into the long, bare hall. The openness made me skittish, nervous, so unnatural not to be covered, hidden from what might see me. Outside, I caught the movement of things. From a distance, they had no faces, no intellect, and that was more than fine with me. I could pretend that they were the people of the apartment complex, coming and going as normal, not as the creepy ambulatory undead. I remained crouched down, all but crawling under the windows along the floor. I didn't have a key to the exercise room, but Frank did. The ring jingled a little as I fumbled with it, but all but it all was an uncomfortable silence around me. And inside, the exercise room was simple, used, but remarkably pristine. There was only one machine, a treadmill, with an out of order sign on it. But in reality, many of the nifty new inclining stair climbers and rowers and treadmills were useless without power being fed constantly into the room. The soft clink of weight on weight came, and in all that silence it startled me. Someone was definitely home, in this open maze of machinery and metal. Cautiously, I crept past the lines of automatic machines to the areas where nothing needed electricity, just the oomph of human musculatory force, the way it used to be. I saw, with a growing knot in my throat, that Jackson was definitely here, laying on a bench with a bar pressing down on his chest, holding him in place. The image of him there, in the middle of what was, to him, a sacred moment, made me wonder how many people had been caught unaware, mid coitus or masturbation, and ended up corpses staring at the dicks in their hands, probably wondering if it was good to eat. And that brought up all kinds of other naughty, nasty zombie images. Surprise, I thought, was my best chance. So I ran forward, out from the protection of some sort of ad machine, axe already following a deadly arc through the air. But the setting, the timing, maybe even the victim, was all a mistake because fate conspired against me. My axe blade came down and it bit into Jackson's chest. Then it clanged off the weight bar he held. My fingers crushed between the my my fingers crushed between the wood handle and the metal bar. I suppressed a scream. Jackson howled in fury and shook the bar so that it tilted and slid to the floor, yanked by its own weight and nearly crushing my toes. I struggled to keep my grip on the axe, to swing again, but I felt the handle slipping. Only dropping the arc, pulling off the attack, kept my weapon in my control. Jackson was bleeding, or gushing. It was hard to tell, except the liquid was so dark. But he was still up and fighting. It must have been truly in his nature, because he appeared to remember it all, how to move, how to dodge, and worst of all, how to hit. I rolled with his first punch, letting it glance off my arm. It hurt like hell, and that whole dodge thing only looked good. In truth, I had no choice of where to go. The force behind Jackson's blows was cosmic. For the first time in a long time, I realized I still feared dying. At least, it was something I planned not to do. Yet, I'd begun to wonder a little bit there. The pain in my fingers sharpened, which meant the feeling was back, which meant my grip was as well. I'd like to say I snarled, or let out a battle cry, or hell, even grunted with the effort. But my brave battle chant came out more like, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, please don't let me be fucked. There was no withdrawing now. My first battle for the death, and like a stupid ass, I'd pick the biggest motherfucker in the room. Well, the only, but still. I struck low and was rewarded with a soft thunk of flesh giving beneath my blade. Jackson struck high, and my pleasure at connecting was lost when his fist collided with my face. As pain goes, it was like making out with an amp when that bleeding, cringe, skin peeling squeal of feedback came through. To say it hurt was an understatement. But my blade outweighed his fists. His force smashed into my eye and made my vision blank out for a moment, but my blow tore open his stomach and splintered into his rib cage. Stunned, he stumbled back. Enraged, I followed forward, chopping into him as many pieces as I could. When he couldn't move, I scooped his pieces up and locked them in the sauna for good measure. The faster he rotted, the better. If anyone's pinky or tongue would have crept around on its own and killed me, it would have been Jackson's. I wasn't going to take any more chances. No more venturing outside. No more focus on what could be. I had real, solid problems, goals to tackle. The Jackson screw up shook me, drove me to be more cautious, but also drove me forward to my next name sooner than the others sooner than the others to try to erase the whole mess up from my memory. Name number 4? Was it 5? Was Donnie Goldberg. And that's where I'm leaving it for today. Kindle says we're at 54%, so I will see you next time.